All right, well, I think we'll get started here as we see folks starting to trickle in. Just a quick sound check. Jake, can you confirm that you could hear me okay?
All set.
Okay, perfect. Well, hello, everyone. Good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you are here in the U.S. or Canada. I'm Matt Yamamoto. I'm the Director of Sales for Dolphin, and actually just wanted to say how excited we are to have all of you on our webinar today. And if this is your first time, then I just wanted to share that the vision of our Advantage webinar series actually is to provide more tools and education just to help all of you continue to grow your practices and also, of course, to continue to provide a wonderful experience for your patients. And today's webinar, of course, focuses on the analyzing side of your data to acquire new patients. So we're excited for that. The vision, of course, is to do these webinars, I would say about every 2 months or quarterly. So please be on the lookout on our Facebook page for new webinars as they come. And then please make sure that we have your current email address too. And at the end of the webinar, there'll actually be a survey that gets sent out, and you can make sure that you sign up to receive updates for any future webinars that we have. So lastly, I want to thank you all and also say that we appreciate you taking the time actually here to expand your knowledge. And I want to say a big welcome to our Dolphin customers and any potential new customers of the Dolphin family. So thank you for your time. We know it's important. We really appreciate it. And okay, so our speaker today is Jake Schwyzer, who's the Chief Revenue Officer for Gaidge. And many of you may remember Jake actually was at our user meeting this year, which had a wonderful response. And so we're all excited and grateful to have him here today. Shameless plug is if you haven't had a chance to sign up for our Austin user meeting, please have a chance to do that and take a chance to do that. We still have some spots available, but they are filling up fast and we're almost at capacity. So thank you for that. And then just a quick bio on Jake. He's actually been in the healthcare industry for the past 15 years, working for large Fortune 500 companies such as Stryker and Danaher as part of the Ormco division. And he actually left Ormco's management team in the fall of 2018 to join Gaidge as their Chief Revenue Officer. And also, just a couple of quick notes is that he earned his undergraduate degree in finance from the University of New Mexico, and he also earned his MBA there as well, with a focus on technology and entrepreneurship. We want to say thank you again to Jake for being here today. Big welcome to him. Without further ado, take it over, Jake.
All right. Thank you, Matt, and thank you, everybody, for taking some time during your busy schedule during the holidays and taking part of your evening to join us today. Our hope is that we can deliver a few key tools and start to change a little bit about the thought process around what's out there as far as managing and mastering our patient journey. So I'm going to go ahead and dive into the presentation. So as we all know, our market is changing rapidly. Thanks to Benson and Koppel for putting this slide together for them. But really understanding that market's been changing, and over the last 5 years, it's probably changed more than it did in the previous 20. There's more orthodontic competitors. There's pediatric dentists that are hiring orthodontists. You've got general dentists doing orthodontics. You've got your Smile Direct clubs. You've got corporate dentistry that's out there. So really what we're trying to do at Gaidge is really develop tools to help to combat with a lot of the chatter and all of the pressures that are on the individual orthodontic practices. So when we start taking a look at data and start to understand data, think about our human body, right? We might be feeling like we're healthy, but if you really don't understand the metrics inside your body, we all have that story of a friend of ours or a colleague or somebody that seemed healthy, but underneath the hood a little bit, there was something going on. And they may or may not have gone and gotten their checkups, and they got the news that something was going on. So it's really vital to really start to understand in our practices, what does the health of our practice look like, and be able to take a look at a lot of those vital signs inside of our practice to really make some smart decisions so then we can make sure we're staying healthy and moving toward the goals that we set for. So when we start thinking about data and we start thinking about how companies are using data, a couple of key, I did some research, and a couple of quotes that really came out to me was, without big data, you are blind and deaf and in the middle of a freeway. Information is the oil of the 21st century, and analytics is the combustion engine. Most of the world will make decisions either by guessing or using their gut. They will either be lucky or wrong. And I think this is really vital, and we'll talk about this when we think about orthodontic practices and everybody's in their office every day and they really have a good gut feeling around what's going on. But being able to really take that gut feeling and verify it with some data is going to be super important. And then finally, big data will spell the death of customer segmentation and force the marketer to understand each customer as an individual within 18 months or risk being left behind. We're going to dive into that in the front part of our presentation here and really understanding who's coming into our offices and how we can drive more of those patients that are coming into our offices that are saying yes to treatment. So what we're going to really focus on is a couple of business intelligence tools. And business intelligence is essentially taking data that's living out there in the ether and distilling it down and bringing it to the audience in a really distilled format, giving you data visualizations, helping you measure analytics, helping you really start to improve some of those decision-making processes. And this industry is actually rising quite a bit. So in 2016, the business intelligence space was about $15.6 billion. And the expectation was from 2016 to 22 that number would grow to about $30 billion. So we're about halfway there, and we're seeing that hockey stick spike start to happen. And so what a business intelligence tool is really doing, it's really helping you streamline all of that administrative work that you may be doing to go collect data and really pulling it out for you, letting you spend 80% or 90% of your time analyzing that information versus spending 80 to 90% of your time pulling those reports and running some of those reports to be able to manage whatever it is that you're doing inside the practice. So really what we're going to focus on today are the metrics of winning. And so data analytics that are driving practice performance. And to stay very specific, we're going to focus on that orthodontic patient journey. So first off, we all know this is a huge piece of orthodontics because you're turning over that patient base, every 2.5 years. We want to make sure we're getting patients calling the office. The second piece is when we do get patients to call our office, how are we able to turn those patients into an exam and turning those exams into starts? And once we do get that patient started, how are we doing when it comes to the quality of treatment and our treatment efficiencies? And then really being able to understand the metrics inside of our practice to be able to plan for the future. So the first part of our presentation, we're going to really dive into something new that we've presented that Gaidge is rolling out in the orthodontic community, and that's how do we get patients to call your office, get those right patients to call your office. We're going to focus on target marketing and some patient personas. So some key questions we really want to think about as we walk through this presentation, okay? Where should I buy or build a new satellite office? What are the best areas in my marketplace that I should focus on my outreach, and what should that outreach look like? What type of patients are calling my office? And then of those patients, what patients are saying yes to treatment and what patients are saying no to treatment? We're really going to focus on this piece. In addition to that, where are those patients that are saying yes to treatment? How do we go find other patients like those? How do we find like patients that are coming in and saying yes? Because we know we'll have a better chance of converting those patients if they're like the ones that are already saying yes. And in doing so, how are we going to start to optimize our marketing ROI, right? We're all spending a certain amount of money on our marketing campaigns. How do we really optimize that? And so at Gaidge, we've partnered with a company by the name of Epiphany Analytics. And Epiphany's worked with a lot of these larger organizations. And what they've done is they've really developed a way to build out an investment grade view of a lot of different pieces of data. And so what we've done in partnering with Epiphany Analytics and going back to that marketing, knowing that the space is changing and we know that the market is always changing and some of those pressures on the orthodontic practice, we wanted to bring something really special to the orthodontic community. And so here are some of the data pieces that we've been able to develop with Epiphany Analytics to bring over to the orthodontic space. And so what happens when I look at this, and this is what happens when I take a look at some of the data that's out there, right? It's kind of spinning around in my brain. And what Epiphany Analytics has been able to do is really distill it down into something very legible and very easy to read. So we're going to focus on some demographic data. Demographic data could be, hey, where are the households with income over $100,000? Where are specific types of patients that have said yes to treatment? Where are they located? And let's go find more of those, and maybe they're located in these specific areas. And we'll talk about how that works. We're going to get some oral healthcare data. So we are able to plot every dental office, orthodontic office, and pediatric office in a specific area across the United States. In addition to that, any one of these specific points, we can actually go in and get the data behind it. So what office, what's the office name, a lot of information that's built into that specific office. We're going to be able to get student data. So we can actually plot out every school from elementary, middle to high school, charter school, and private school, and start to understand what the student base looks like in every single school. So we'll be able to understand how many students are in each grade from 9th to 12th grade in that specific high school. So really diving in to each one of those schools. We can get some medical spend, and we can understand over and under supply in a specific area. We're not going to dive too much into this, but we do have the ability to understand, for instance, what part of a market would justify putting a practice that can drive up to $2 million of revenue. We're going to focus a lot on our target persona data. And so understanding based on these persona data, where are they, how are they segmented out? And then finally, we've partnered with a company by the name of Simmons Research to get some consumer behavior. And this behavior is from political affiliations to the types of movies you like to watch, all the way down to the music you listen to. So really pulling all of this information in together and to bring it to the orthodontic space. This is going to be an important slide because all of this information and all of that data that's been built in is going to be put into what we call a flex quad. And so a flex quad is just 1 square mile. So if you take a look here, here's 1 square mile in the Southern California market. Okay? There are 3.4 million flex quads across the United States. Then what we're going to do is we're going to start to plug in data. And so, for instance, what we're going to do is we're going to take this center point of this square, we're going to draw a circle around it, and let's just say this is 3 square miles or 3 mile radius that's around that center portion of this square, this 1 square mile area. And we're going to go collect some data. And let's say our data point is households with $100,000 of income or more. So there are 10,000 households with $100,000 of income or more in this 3 mile radius. Okay? Then what we do is we plug another flex quad in and we draw another circle. So you'll see here that we've lost some data here, right, here on this side, but we've gained some data over here, right? And then there's some overlapping data that's in between. And you'll see how this all breaks out. So there are 8,000 households with $100,000 of income or more in that circle that's just 1 mile to the east. Then what we do is we populate every single one of these flex quads. And in addition to that, we start to color code it. So the denser the color, the more of the population density that we're looking for. So if I'm thinking about a practice, and I have my practice here in this little flex quad here, and I want to do some marketing campaigns to a specific persona type or to households with $100,000 or more, instead of doing a blanket brush over 10,000 or 10 square miles, I might really just focus up on this area because I know that's where there's a bigger density of the population that I know it's probably going to be better for orthodontic treatment. So this is how a lot of this information is distilled down and makes it easy to read and really understand what the trends are happening around the data set that we're looking at. So as we're going to go ahead and transition. So everybody out there, we all know that we have a credit score, right? That's whether or not you've been a good boy, good girl, bad girl. Are you paying your bills or you're not paying your bills? But behind every single credit score, we have a persona code. And those persona codes are broken out into 19 categories into 71 different subsegments. And so every single one of us has a persona code. And it's really based on how we spend our money, where we spend our money, age, income, and many different psychographic pieces of information that are plugged into this. And so what is a persona? A persona is a fictional representation of our ideal customer. They're a composite of marketing research and remind us of the unique human element of our target audience. So who are we trying to bring into our orthodontic office, and how and what do they look like? So this is Jill Parrish. Jill lives in Carlsbad, California. She's female, age 32, $75,000 in income. She's politically progressive, exercise enthusiast, risk taker. You can read through this. So Jill Parrish is a G25, urban edge. okay? So now, how do we go find, or where are those urban edge personas located? So what we have here is a block group. So we have a block here in the Southern California market, okay? We want to understand how many G25s are in that specific market, in that specific block. So we actually have taken every single household in this block, okay, and broken out every single household into a persona. G25, there's 1,332 G25s living in this block across the board. So then what do we want to do? We want to understand, okay, where are they located and what are they? So what we have the ability to do is find out where those G25s are. We can actually go out, understand where the G25s are, get their name, city, state, and address. Okay, so what we're doing is we're starting to understand who potentially might be our target personas and being able to find out where they're located. So how does that work in an orthodontic office? So we all have our CRM or our practice management system, Dolphin system, right? And we have a ton of different patients that we've added into our system over the last few years, okay? What we're able to do is take all that information, plug it into our system, and we can actually spit out a persona code for every single patient that you have put into your software system over the past couple of years, all right? So as we start to understand those persona codes, we take that information and we actually plot it onto this map. So those five patients are all plotted on here, okay? So those are all broken out. You see your 19 different subsegments from our Power Elite down to our economic challenges, okay? What the customer base and what the US population looks like. So how does that work in an orthodontic office? So now we understand all of the persona codes that are coming into our office. And this is an actual office that we did this for, but who are the persona codes and what is the bulk of the persona codes that are saying yes to treatment in our office? And so what we found here is these are our top 10 persona codes that are saying yes to treatment. Let's come over here on the right-hand side. So we got our AL1s, 3s, 4s. AL1s are 0.2% of that specific market, but 5% of our patient base are AL1s. So we have a factor, and any factor that's above 1 is a high conversion factor. So we think that, you know, if we can get an AO1 in the door, there's a high likelihood that they're going to say yes to treatment. So we want to be able to go find more of these specific patients that are saying yes to treatment. In addition to that, we're going to go try to understand, hey, who's saying no to treatment or just not showing up for their exams? Okay, so we've added them to our software. They either came in, did an exam, they said no, or they just didn't show up or didn't even set up an exam. And so we plotted that information as well onto a map. So we start to understand who are our top 10 no-shows or the ones that are saying no to treatment. And as you can see here, plotted on this map, there's a distinct segmentation that's happening on those persona types that are saying yes to treatment and those persona types that are saying no to treatment, right? So how do we go find more of these specific patients? We're also going to go out and we're going to bubble chart up and understand your observation pool. So as you have your observation coordinator working through, you know, the 200 or 300 patients that are sitting in your observation pool, we want to understand and be able to go after those observation pool patients that are the ones that are saying yes to treatment. So we might give these ones the full court press and maybe do some different examining when it comes to scheduling, when it comes to different observation patients, right? And it's all different based on every single practice, but really understanding what your market looks like and who's saying yes and who's saying no to treatment is going to be super vital as you start to build out that marketing plan. So now we've put those now we've aggregated all of that data for you that's in your practice management system. Then what we want to do is now we want to go out and we want to plot out every single person that has said yes. We can actually plot out yeses and nos, but for this presentation, we're plotting out every single patient that said yes and where are they located in the marketplace that you cover, okay? So here's the office, and here's all of the patients that have said yes over the last 2 years, okay? Then what we're going to do is we're going to take that information and plug it into those flex quads. And so I'm going to focus on this flex quad here where it has this number 40, okay? And there are 40 patients, okay, that have said yes to treatment in this 3 square mile area, okay? if we go back one, there are, as you start to see, now you get to see where the patients that are saying yes to treatment are coming from, okay? So we have a bigger bulk of patients that are coming just north of this particular office, right? We don't have as many down here to the south, just south of the office. So where is our market opportunity? Okay. So then what we'll do is we'll take a look. We're going to rank out our top 10 markets. Then what we're going to do is say, okay, based on the information, based on our top 10 personas that we understood when we aggregated that data, where are those top 10 personas located? So again, focusing on this flex quad here, there are 1,393 of our top 10 personas living in this little 9-box area. So now we've distilled the information down in our marketing campaign to say, okay, who are the ones saying yes? Where are they located? We've taken that, whatever the specific number, and really located our top 10 markets, or excuse me, our top 10 personas. And we're gonna put these in all of the different flex quads throughout and near our office. Okay. Now, one thing I do want to point out, you see out here, there's 1,393 of our top 10 personas. There are bigger numbers that are happening. 2002 up here, you've got 1,500 up here. You would think these might be some rich targets for me to go after, but remember, we had more patients up here. So the next thing we want to do is understand where are the top 10 areas of our marketplace that we should be marketing to. And we're going to actually rank those from 1 to 10. And so this here is the number one market for our particular office that was here. Number 6 is right around the office. And so what that's telling me is our top 10 personas, right? Of those top 10 personas, there's probably more of our top 5 or 6 personas located in this particular market, as in our number 4 market, which had more of our top 10, but probably has more of our 5 to 10. This is a market we really want to focus on. And in communicating with this office, they said, yeah, we thought we were getting more patients from this area. Now we know we need to do up our marketing campaign down there. And then what we do is we take all of those 1,300 or every single one of those top 10 personas, and we give them an aggregated conversion factor number. And so this is the highest conversion factor that's going to happen. So again, this tells me there are more of our top 3, 4 to 5 persona types living in this specific market versus up here where we have a 1.4. These might be our 8, 9s, and 10s. That are living up in this space. This is telling us what our market share is and looks like. So of those top 10 persona types, we have a 2.1% penetration in just in this one flex quad. So what is that telling us as an orthodontic office? It means that there's tons of opportunity out there, right? There's a 98% of opportunity out there to just focus on our top 10 personas. So if we can get really good at understanding how to communicate to that top 10 persona type and go out and find those lookalikes that are saying yes, then all of a sudden we're going to start to drive a higher conversion rate and be a lot more efficient when we have patients in our game. We have the ability to plot out the schools. And so this is every school in the area. And then based on the flex quad, we can actually go in and say, hey, I want to find out where middle school students are located. So there are 1,700 middle school students located in this specific area. So we're focused on that grade, that age grade from, I think it's from fifth grade to 9th grade. How many of those students are located in these specific areas? And we go back up to that 2002, there's not that many students up here, okay? So this is a ripe area. We don't have as many starts down here. This really gives us a really great way to start understanding how to market to this space. So you don't take any one of those data sets and say, hey, let's run with it. You want to overlay all of that. You start to understand, okay, where are my current patients located? Who are my target top 10 patients and how many are located in each one of those markets? Understanding the conversion factor, I know I want to go after those higher converting persona types, so where are those located? Understanding your market penetration, where opportunity might look, and then we've created a way to rank every single one of these markets. So really taking all that information and to be able to start to dissect and analyze how to become a little bit more robust with our marketing. And this is just showing current market growth. So those 40 starts broken out at a $5,000 per case basis was $200,000. But what we really wanted to show based on the opportunity is And I'm not saying these numbers are even anywhere near where you can get to, but if you can get just a sliver of some of these numbers in each one of these marketplaces by becoming really good at finding those correct patients, you can start to take a little bit more of that market share in each one of these markets. So we talked about some of those top 10 persona types. Let's focus on one of our top 3 or 4 personas. Right? We know we saw that number of 1393, and we start to understand, okay, that's where our top 10 are, but you know what? I want to focus on my top 4, my 3 or 4. And AO4 being one of those numbers. Hey, you know what? Let's go find out where AO4s are located. So in that same flex squad, there are 27,000 people as a total population in that same flex squad. But what I want to do is I want to find these AO4s. So what we have the ability to do is click in the system on our map, and we can go in, and now we realize that there are 161 AO4s living in this 3 square mile area, okay? Then I want to say, okay, well, that's great. I want to know where they're located. Now we have the ability to go in, find those AO4 households, and give you a list of name, city, state, and zip of each of one of those AO4s in that specific flex squad. And we can do that down to the flex squad. We can do it down to the zip code, but really understanding where these people are located and be able to develop a strategy. Now, we found some of these AO4s. We know where they're located. Let's say we just want to go and start to market to some of these people. Well, let's start to understand who they are. The AO4 are low risk, right? We know they're going to pay their bills. That's always a great orthodontic candidate. Their income, 94% are above 125,000, so they have the income to be able to afford treatment. 74% probability of having a higher degree. And then this is where we really dive into each one of these segments and some of the information about who they are. Right? 56% are nutritional value is important, and this is in your specific market, in the market that we just went over. Always try to eat healthy, 62%. Gather health information from websites, regular medical checkups, and exercise regularly. These seem like really great targets for orthodontic treatment. So, hey, now we know where they're located, kind of where the bulk of those AO4s are located. We know a little bit about them. Now let's dive a little bit deeper. So this is an AO4, and you can get this information. And so who are they? What are they about? What are their lifestyle habits? You know, like to go to concerts, movies, read books, and start to learn what they like to do, what they're about, and then how they like to be marketed to. So do they like to be marketed through direct mail? Anything under 100 is going to be something that they don't necessarily resonate with. Brick and mortar, they do resonate with that. Shopping online, right? Amazon, something like that. Satellite radio. So you can see what type of marketing campaign is going to resonate with an AO4. And then you start to understand how to market to them. So as you understand, you know, how to get to them here, and then what the message is, you can really create a nice marketing campaign to go find those AO4s. So AO4s are the most marketable consumer segment. They embrace new experiences, and they love authentic experiences, quality products and services. So to me, these key words really mean, or they really spell out, hey, this is a really great orthodontic target. Then what we've done is we've actually done about 25 or 30 of these what we call a complete patient market study. But we're trying to understand, hey, what potential markets are we missing in our segment? And so we saw that particular office, and they had a lot of their yeses were in this area, okay? But what we didn't see is any that were in the C's or in the F's. And so what we're going to focus on is, hey, where are some of the places that we see across the board that are having success? And let's go focus on some of those specific persona types, find out where they're located, and develop a campaign to go find those. So if I go back one, what I'd see here, 51 to 65-year-old, 125,000 on average with no kids. These might be some really great targets for some aligner treatment, okay? And so how do I go get those patients in here? Remember how the AO4s didn't resonate with direct mail? This one at 306, they highly, you know, they really are into direct mail. So again, you can find out who they are, what their lifestyle is all about, and then start to find out how to market to those people and what the messaging needs to be. So they like catalogs, newspapers, magazines, available for TV, email, online advertising, and they're in the market for cars, investments, vacations, electronics, and tools. So they have that income that's out there. You know, maybe they want to go out and maybe they want to improve their smiles. So what do I do with all this, right? There's a lot of really great data. What do I do with it? So we want to be able to determine those most densely populated areas with our target personas, those lookalikes that are saying yes, and develop a talk track to our top persona types that we know are coming into our office. Understand how to start selling to no's, right? We know those no's, those different persona types, they're coming in. We know a few of them are saying yes. Being able to understand and how to communicate to those. Are there any segments you're missing? Like those C14s, are there any segments that we could be going after that we could develop a potential direct mailer to? Understand the student density and where some schools are. I had an orthodontist that had no idea that there was a school down the road from his office. It was a private school. And when we did some of the research on it, there was, 50 or 60 students in each one of the grades, in the high school grades. And he's like, God, that'd be a perfect place to go maybe do some on the ground campaigning too. And then to test the top markets and how do you want to market to those patients? So again, how do we take it to the next level? And so we've partnered with some agencies to be able to say, hey, how do we track and take all this really great market map data, and what do we do with it? And so we want to be able to work with these marketing agencies to be able to develop direct mail, do some SEO, do some social media, understand paid ads, and what's going to work with each one of those personas. And so when we think about our market maps, we really want to take it beyond just practice data. Really understand who's coming into our practice, understand our market demographics, being able to target and really segment our market into who's really going to come into our office and say yes, and find out who those patient personas are and start to track that information so we can really optimize our marketing ROI. So now that we've dove into a little bit some new pieces that are out there when it comes to our marketing strategy and really dissecting that information down, let's focus on now we've got the patients in the door and how do we get them to start treatment? And so here's some current trends across the US. So this is data that we pulled out of our Gaidge database. These are single doctor owners across the United States. And this was a 12-month rolling number through the month of August, okay? And what we're taking a look at here is new patients added. And so on average, these offices have added 835 new patients to their practice management software. So an increase of about 1.9%, pretty close to flat. Next up, we're going to take a look at how have we done from turning those 835 new patients into total exams. It seems that we have a bit of a drop off here from here, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But we've been able to increase about 1.2% when it comes to our total exams. And then what do the number of total starts look like? So being able to take that 667 and turn those into starts, okay? Pretty flat, right? 434 to 435 on average from our single doctor owners, right? You start to see across each one of our treatment modalities, we're actually trending in either flat or in a negative direction. So we've trended down in our full starts. Phase 1's pretty flat. Phase 2's pretty flat, limited and other. But where we started to see an increase, okay, is in our aligner starts. Okay, and we've seen that trend happen on a year-over-year basis from 2016 up to 2019. So we know the aligner space is becoming more of a, as far as our treatment modality mix, a bigger player in that treatment modality mix because we can see that increase. And this is the share of total number of starts that are happening. So on a year-over-year from 2018 to 2019, we're up 13.4%, and about 1 out of every 5 cases are aligner cases. And then finally, we've started to see a trend of our case acceptance start to reduce. Okay, so we're adding new patients, but we want to make sure that we're tracking this number as well. We're doing a good job of converting those patients into starts. We get them into an exam. We've done all that work. How do we get better at converting those patients into our treatment starts? So based on some information that we collected, we think the average U.S. orthodontic practice loses about $200,000 of production opportunity yearly due to their consumer conversion process. Taking those patients from adding them to the software, turning those patients into exams and those exams into starts. And we're going to walk through what that looks like. So we have 3 main leaky buckets. We have our new patient add to exam. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about our observation system. And then we're going to talk about our phase 1 to phase 2 conversion. So at this point, I'm going to introduce our consumer conversion waterfall. Okay. So we know that we had added from our chart before, we added 835 new patients to our software. Of those 835, we only did 667 exams. So we have a leaky bucket just starting right there. What's our process look like? As we've done 667 exams, we sent 133 into our OBS program. We put 305 in pending, or they were declined. And we had 229 starts come straight from our exams. As we work this process back up to the total starts, from our pre-start treatment from our observation program, we had 52 starts from our observation program, 31 that went from phase 1 to phase 2, and then we had 125 starts from our pending, add up to the 437 starts. So we've identified 3 main leaky buckets, okay, that are happening in our new patient add to exam, our observation program, and our phase 1 to phase 2. So let's go ahead and dive into those. The leaky bucket number 1, let's minimize our exam no-shows. So the average single doctor practice added 835 new patients. Out of those, 168 did not attend the exam. So that's a 20% attrition. Now our goal, and a lot of this data we're collecting from Mary Beth Kirkpatrick and a lot of the consultants that are out there, they do a lot of communication with each other to really set some benchmarks around, around a lot of these metrics. And so we collected these benchmarks from a lot of industry experts. So the industry experts think that we should keep that number at about 10%. So when we add a new patient to our software, we should have an attrition at about 10%, okay? So let's take a look at the math here. So we added 835 new patients, less 10% no-show. That would be an exam number of 751 exams. We completed 667, so we lost a total of 84 exams. We're going to send 17 or 20% of those exams over to our observation pool. So that leaves 67 exams at a conversion rate of right around 60%. Would equal up 40 starts. At $5,000, that adds up to a total opportunity. Again, this is just, you'll have to run a lot of these best practices and these analytics for yourself in your own practice. But if you take a look at that number, if you're able to start to reduce that attrition that's happening from our new patients added to an exam, even if you're a portion of that 203,000, you can start to see a lot more revenue that's going to be put into your practice. So what are some best practices to be able to manage that process? So consider a new patient coordinator position that's responsible for taking a majority of those new patient calls. A lot of times we have somebody at the front desk that's taking those new patient calls, but they might be checking someone out. There's a lot that potentially may be going on. So how do we help that person and put somebody in charge of any new patients that's really good at communicating with those patients and really focused on just that topic of getting those patients to set up that next exam? We want to be able to offer those exams within a very quick period of time. 72 hours would be great. We know that's difficult, but if we could reduce that time, that gives that patient less or fewer opportunities to go out and shop around. New patient call engagement protocol. So we want to include an introductory call from the doctor or the TC. So we know potentially we've set that exam. Make sure that there's some sort of outreach to make sure that they're coming in. Promote the practice. And the doctor really emphasize as you're starting to set those exams, what differentiates your practice from the competition in your community. And then finally, prioritize some prime exam spots for those personas. So if you've done that persona analysis, really understanding who's saying yes and who's saying no, and if you can understand who those patients are, you can put prime exam spots for those persona types that you feel like are going to be more of a chance to be able to have a higher conversion rate. And those ones that potentially may be a no-show or might be a little bit tougher, might be kicking the tires, maybe we put them into a different exam type and maybe a TC exam or some sort of a complementary exam that you're doing. So leaky bucket number 2 is our observation patients. So the average doctor across our Gaidge metrics had 52 starts coming from their observation pool, which is 12%. We would love for that number to be at 20%. So our total starts were 437. 20% of our target from OBS is 87. Starts from OBS is 52, so we have a difference of 35. So at our average contract amount of $5,000, we have a lost opportunity of $178,000. Again, It's not that don't focus on the number, focus on the process. If we can get that number from 12 up to 15 to closer to 20%, you can start to see how you're going to be able to start to drive that specific vertical and that specific revenue stream and start to really create some growth in the practice. So again, some best practices. Consider a growth and development coordinator position. We'll talk about this in the subsequent leaky bucket, but sole focus is to manage OBS and our between phase customers. Enhance a doctor-patient messaging. So when a patient comes in and they've taken time to come all the way across town, maybe take their kid out of school, we want to make sure we give them a really great message, really be detailed about what we're looking at versus, hey, everything looks good, see you in 6 months. We really want to walk them through what we're looking at and what the time frame may be for the next time they come in and when they may be ready for treatment. And then finally, implement a potential strategic approach to managing that OBS pool. And we talked about that when we were taking a look at our observation pool, but really taking a look and saying, of our observation pool, how do we go out and segment our observation pool to bring in those really high likelihoods of converting those patients into a start? Let's go find those when we're working through our observation numbers. And then finally, our leaky bucket number 3 is our phase 1 to phase 2 conversions. So the average doctor practice had 31 starts. They're converting roughly 50% of those phase 1 patients over to a phase 2 start. Okay, that seems like a low number. So 1 out of every 2, only half of our patients that we start in phase 1 are turning into phase 2. Right? So we want to focus on how do we get that number up to 85% of our phase 1 starts going into phase 2. What is that, and what is that number? How does that affect us? So our phase 1 to phase 2, if we had 59 phase 1 starts, 85% target would be 50. Our actual number was 31. The difference of 19, an average contract amount of $5,000. We're looking at another $100,000 of potential lost opportunity. Again, best practices, we want to consider the growth and development coordinator position. We want parent education on why it's important. Phase 1 isn't the end of all this. We want to make sure, how do we make sure that they're coming back for that phase 2 treatment? And consistently connect with these people. Make sure we have regular visits during those rest phases and really start to prep them for that phase 2 finishing stage. Again, as we go back to our consumer conversion waterfall, start to take a look at all the potential lost opportunity that's out there. So we really want to focus on those leaky buckets. Knowing your leaky buckets, deploying the right tools, partners, and resources to manage those leaky buckets, and really creating process around that. Take action on those leaks, really focus on those leaks and see what we can do to manage that, and then consistently measure and evaluate the effectiveness of your action. Now what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, so now somebody has said yes to treatment. What does that treatment efficiency look like? So what is treatment efficiency? Is implementing a set of clinical processes and procedures to consistently finish all cases within their estimated completion date. There is a significant benefit/cost to your practice depending on your treatment efficiency results. So we're going to focus on 5 key metrics when it comes to our treatment efficiency. Starts per D-band, patients over estimated completion date, value per visit, gross profit per visit, and then our estimated versus actual months to complete. How that's going to affect us in our practice. So our first metrics are starts versus our D-band. So we really want to understand, if you start to think about an assembly line, you really want to evaluate how we're managing our starts versus the D-band over a specific period of time, and then start to think about how that's going to affect the practice as we move along. And so if you think about, an assembly line, when if you start a certain number of widgets or whatever it is, as you start to go along, if you start to add more, but you're not finishing them up on the back end, then you start to have a backlog. So you think about how that might affect your practice. So our target range is 1.2 to 1.3. Now, if you're debanding at a higher rate than you're doing starts, that could be an indicator of your growth is starting to slow. Right? We're actually debanding more, so we have fewer patients in treatment, and so now our practice potentially could be slowing down. Now, if you're starting a lot over as far as more starts versus deband, you could either be in hypergrowth mode, or there could be a potential with we are over our estimated completion date, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So you might be in that hyper growth mode, but if you're over that estimated completion date and you start a bunch of patients, all of a sudden that's where that backlog starts to happen. And those patients are starting to take up chair time, and those could be revenue driving chair times to be able to go get new starts. So second one is going to be our patients over estimated completion date. So that's the number of patients over ECD divided by the total number of active patients. Inside of Gaidge, we have that information. What are the total number of active patients? And we're tracking what our over ECD percentage looks like. Our goal is to keep it right around 10%, okay? Less than 10%. And it's important to know the aging of these over ECDs. Because if we're going over ECD, if they're a couple weeks over, that's really not affecting the practice. But as we get into the 60 to 90 and 90 plus days, that's where you start to see an effect on the practice when you go over ECD. Because again, those are revenue killers. They're taking up chair time where you could be getting in a new patient, depending on how the practice is working. Number 3 and 4 is really evaluating our value per visit, which is our average contract amount divided by our total number of visits. And our gross profit per visit, taking what it costs, like on an aligner versus our braces, what it costs us, and understanding the value that we can bring into the practice on every time somebody walks through the door. And our target's to be over 275. And so you start to see the importance to calculate on a treatment type on how many different appointments are we having across each one of our treatment types, and how does that affect our gross profit. And so, yes, and how does that start to affect the number of dollars we're making every time somebody walks in the door? So each one of those treatment type times when they come in is going to start affecting our practice and our profitability. Estimated versus actual months to completion is going to be the 5th one. So are you over or under what you estimated? And if over, by how many months on average? And how many additional appointments does that represent? And so how much is this actually costing your practice? So we're going to dive into some numbers. Now, these aren't really raw numbers, but you have to think about it conceptually on how it's truly potentially affecting your practice by going over your estimated completion date. So when we take a look at all of our treatment types, let's focus on the full here, our 254 starts that we've done over the last 12 months. So our value per visit is $291. Our cost per visit, now we're taking in, we just estimated at a 60% overhead. So our cost per visit is valued at $175. Our estimated months to completion was 22 months. We're actually finishing our cases in 25 months across 19 visits. So our visit interval is actually the number 22 divided by the 19 visits. So we're seeing 1.32 visits every single month. And our actual versus estimated, we're actually going over by 3 months. So how does that affect our office? So our average number of extra visits needed to complete treatment is roughly 2.3. So it's right around 2.3 based on the numbers here. Again, we understand there's different treatment or appointment intervals throughout the cycle of your treatment. We're just trying to take a look at this and say, what does it mean to be over our total estimated completion? Our cost per patient is $398. That's taking this $175 and adding this, multiplying times these 2.3 extra visits. And so the total cost across all these 254 patients is a potential cost of $101,000 to the practice. And if we broke it across all these different treatment modalities, we're looking at around $160,000. Now, again, don't focus on the actual number, focus on the fact of what it may potentially be costing us by going over our treatment estimated completion. And so how does that affect you across the different number of visits? And I'm not going to dive too deep into this, but plus or minus 5, you can start to see where the dollars would affect your practice as you become a more efficient and start to reduce the number of visits inside of your office for every single one of your patients, across the full and our aligner patients. And you can start to see how these dollars would affect you if you can become more efficient. You never want to, compromise the quality of treatment, But if you can still give that same quality of a treatment by reducing those number of appointments, you're going to be exponentially more successful. So treatment efficiency summary, analyze your start to D-band ratio. Make sure you understand that to be able to understand what's going to happen down the road. What percent of your patients are overestimated completion date? And then how much is your treatment efficiency really costing your practice? And really focusing on that, taking a look at that and see what that treatment efficiency and how much that's potentially in or benefiting your practice. So our final part of the patient journey and really understanding how we're working through with our practices to plan for our future and really start to project out how we can and what we need to do to meet the goals we put forth for our practice. So let's kind of work this backwards. So in 2019, let's say our practice did 1.4 million in net production. We want to grow 10%. Okay? That means our 2020 goal net production is 1.5, or close to $1.6 million. At an average contract amount, taking our historical data of a little over $5,000, we know we have to do 312 stars. If we stay pretty standard at 61% case acceptance, that means we would need to do 511 exams. We can get really good at that new patients added to an exam and only lose 10% of those patients. That means throughout the 12 months, we need to have 562 new patient calls coming into our system. Broken down by month, if we can get 47 new patient calls coming into our system and work every single one of these specific areas, then we know we can hit that goal of 1.6 million for our net production. So really just taking some time to take historical data and understand how to drive toward the goals that you want to meet. So to review our orthodontic patient journey, we want to get those patient calls, go find those targeted patients. How do we get those patients in the door? Because that's really going to help our efficiency. If we know those patients are the highly likelihood to say yes, we know the more patients we see, the better our conversion rate is and the more efficient we're going to be able to be and the more capacity we're going to have. Getting patients in our office and starting treatment. So once we get them in, we want to be able to get those patients in, make sure we have a robust process around managing our observation pool, managing our phase 1 to phase 2, really having a robust process around turning those new patients that we've done a ton of marketing work to get them to call our office. How do we turn those into exams? Get really good at our treatment efficiency and really analyzing our treatment efficiency. And then finally, really planning out through historical data on how to meet the projections or how to meet the goals that we want to meet. So with that being said, I wanted to thank Dolphin and everybody for spending the last hour with us and kind of talking through some other pieces and some analytics that are out there that can really help the practice start to move forward and meet the goals that you put set for the future. And I wanted to thank everybody again and thank Dolphin and Matt. And if there are any questions, feel free to go ahead and ask them through the chat or and I'll be more than willing to answer.
Thank you, Jake. So for those of you that are having trouble finding that, it's actually located on the bottom of some icons there. There's a circle icon, looks like a bubble. That's the chat feature. You can click on that if you want to type in a question. You might also have a Q&A window on your right-hand side. You want to go ahead and type a question there too as well. So we'll pause a minute or two to see if there are any questions.
No, this isn't the ortho version of Cambridge Analytica. That's a great question. No, it's not. It's totally completely different. That was taking social data, something very different and targeting specific people. So it's very different from the Cambridge Analytica piece. Oh, yeah, I know. Dr. Hogue, I appreciate that. That was a very funny question. I like that. How does the relationship work? Between you and the ortho practice. So on the Gaidge side, we're integrated with Dolphin. And so what we'll do is we have the ability to go in and we kind of extract 80 plus key performance indicators on a nightly basis. That's how we work with the Dolphin practices. And we put it into data visualization, raw data. You'll be able to really get a lot of information on the health of your practice. On the Gaidge market maps piece, what we can do is we can get with the practice, kind of walk through how it works, kind of a little bit around what we just saw now, and then we can work with your practice to go get that information, and then we'll deliver what we call a complete patient market study to you, and then start to work with you on how to analyze that data and how to create an action plan to move forward with that data. I hope I answered your question. You're welcome. Any other questions? How many offices? So we have about 1,000 orthodontists across 1,500 locations on our Gaidge system. Our market map technology is relatively new. We rolled it out at the AAO. So we have close to 25 or 30 practices that have invested in our complete patient market study. And just to re-emphasize it, these are different software systems. So there's different segments. What about rural areas? Yeah, actually the example you saw was a rural area. As we get into urban areas, you're going to see a few more flex quads, but we have the ability to do it across the entire United States and fill out that data. Are there any other questions? I think Jay Hogan's the question person. Is there anybody else that has any questions, comments? All right.
All righty.
Jay, I think we can dive into some of the costs if you'd like to set up a time. But we have some different cost structures across the maps and with Gaidge, and depending on the practice. So we can discuss that if you'd like. All right, great. Sounds good.
Well, all right. Well, if there are no further questions, Jake, do you have anything else to add?
No, I think that's great. I mean, I just wanted to say thanks again. I really appreciate the time, and appreciate everybody spending part of their evening with us. And everybody have a great holiday and Happy New Year.
Yeah, I want to say the same to everybody. I also want to say thank you again to Jake. And I hope everybody had a chance maybe to think a little about some different ways to help your practice. There will be a link to the recording of today. We'll actually email that link out either today or tomorrow. So if you missed any of the content from today and you want to go back and take a look at it, we have a link to the recording that will be emailed to you again either today or tomorrow. So with that, I want to say thank you again to everybody. Have a great holiday season and New Year coming up, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.